longtime friend and a guy who I've really enjoyed watching his team grow this year. They were the last undefeated team in college basketball. They won the Mountain West Conference regular season championship. They lost on a buzzer shot to Utah State in the Mountain West Conference tournament championship. He's the head coach of San Diego State. He's Brian Dutcher, 30-2. Dutch, how would you characterize this season?
I'd say a pretty good success, Doug, and thanks for having me.
Okay, now couple it with how it ended. It's not just that it ended with no NCAA tournament. It ended where you guys lose to Utah State, who you guys had beaten twice. You lose on a last-second shot. And then, oh, yeah, by the way, the tournament had been moved up like a week earlier. So, I mean, part of it, at least you got to play the tournament, but then you don't get a chance to bounce back from it, and you had all that time off. What has this last week been like?
It's been hard, Doug, in the fact where, as coaches, we always have another opportunity to go to the dance. And so I've been a number of times. I was blessed to work with Steve Fisher all those years we went at Michigan, years we went here at San Diego State. But when you get guys like KJ Fagan and Yanni Wetzel and Malachi Flynn that are wonderful players that sacrifice part of their games to come here with the intent of winning, and then to win at the level they did and not be able to go to the tournament for the first time in their careers was kind of hard to swallow.
Okay, so did they already know, did you know and then you told them? Because you and I were texting right before it was announced about, hey, because there's a lot of these coaches that let's just postpone it. Let's figure out a way to get it postponed, not canceled. It felt to me like you got no advance warning that it was going to be canceled.
No, I told him, I called him before the announcement. I called him in the morning, and once the NBA canceled and everyone started canceling, I called him individually on the phone, and I said, I'd be shocked if it doesn't get canceled. I feel awful if it does, but I think that's the direction it's trending, and we'll probably all learn together. I won't have advance notice, so if you see something on the TV, know that it's something I think is going to happen. I feel awful for it, but it's the world we're living in right now.
There's a new push to have some of these seniors get an extra year. Likelihood that happens?
I think the devil's in the details, Doug. I think it's a great sentimental option right now. But what about the teams like our conference and the conference tournaments that were finished, whose seasons were actually over? Are you going to let all those kids who finish their seasons come back for another year, another senior year, even though their seasons had ended? What teams are not going to go to the dance? We didn't do a bracket. Is it only the 68 teams going to the dance? Are we letting them all come back seniors? Or are we letting all the teams from the SEC, Big Ten, all the other leagues that didn't get their conference tournament come back? And so I think in theory it's good, but what if I have two seniors that don't want to come back, and now I got to play everybody else in the conference whose seniors did come back? What's the competitive disadvantage? So in theory it sounds good. In reality, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I think it will be interesting. Why do you think they couldn't postpone it? They had to cancel it.
I think as much as the NCAA is March Madness, they represent all sports. And so to say we're going to postpone or suspend the tournament and look at it later, and then at the same time say we're canceling all spring sports, at some level don't the spring sports saying, wait a minute, you're thinking you still might play the tournament? Is there a chance we could play again? So I think because they represent everybody, I think that the only way they could go if they were going to cancel spring, they couldn't sit there and say, in good conscience, we're just going to suspend the tournament and see if we can play it.
Brian Dutcher, head coach of San Diego State, joining us here on the Doug Gottlieb Show, Fox Sports Radio. San Diego State, last undefeated team in college basketball, 30-2 on the season. Of course, they, like everybody else, won't get a chance to play in the NCAA tournament. Do you want to see a bracket revealed on Sunday?
At first, I thought it'd be a good thing, but I don't know, Doug. It's such a great moment. It's one of the best moments. Besides running out for that first game, is to sit there with your team and see your name come up on that board, the reaction and who you're playing, where you're playing. It's such a great moment. And I don't know if it would be kind of a fake thing now, if it would, could we even get a group that large together in one space without violating some coronavirus rule? So, yeah, I think it would be I'm torn, Doug, on it. Really, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and then like it looked like you guys were going to be a 2 seed and then have a chance to play Gonzaga in Los Angeles. I almost feel like that's extra salt to the wound.
Well, maybe we'll call Mark Few and see if we can play a neutral game at the Staples next year and play it anyway.
Yeah, personnel will be slightly different.
It'll be slightly different.
Slightly different for both teams. How'd the kids take it?
I think I have a mature adult team, and I think they knew the reality of it. Were they disappointed? Yes. But I think when the NBA canceled and then the NHL and Major League Baseball, I don't think they sat there and go, well, why aren't we playing? When they saw basically the sporting world shut down, I think they knew that they had no chance of playing, and they just had to accept it for what it was.
I also think, and you tell me if I'm wrong, Brian Dutcher, head coach of Sdsu State, you've been around kids a long time. They do feel like they're more – I know that our country feels less resilient, like more sensitive, but I feel basketball players specifically are a little bit more resilient, right? They're used to a tournament might or might not go off without a hitch in Vegas over the weekend, right? Like this is part of the AAU mentality isn't a terrible thing because they've lost in tournaments before. They've had tournaments canceled before. They switched teams before. They've had coaches change before, like all the stuff. So there's not the freak out factor that there are for, I would say, what I call civilians, non-basketball players.
Yeah, my 2 seniors, I met with everybody individually today, and my 2 seniors couldn't have been any better. KJ Fagan it couldn't have been any better for me, Coach. I came to San Diego State. The media embraced me. Aztec Nation embraced me. The city embraced me. I went 30-2. I love my teammates. It was everything I hoped it would be. And Yanni was the same way, Coach. I made the right decision. What a great team. What a great people to be around for this year. And it was more embracing the good of what had happened instead of dwelling on the fact we couldn't play, there's been an injustice done. We kind of embrace the good, and that's what mature kids do.
Okay, so in embracing the good, what is the good thing that you're going to take away this weekend? There's no hoops. Your team's not going to be playing next weekend in the NCAA tournament. What are you going to do?
I'm going to recruit.
But you can't go anywhere.
On the phone. Hey, that's what the phone's for. I mean, as down as I am, we're not playing. I got to get ready for next year. So I'm watching the web portal. I'm calling kids, and I'm trying to build next year's Aztec team. As disappointed I am for this year's, I have an obligation to build next year's team, and it started today.
What does it do for Malachi, kid who had a great season, right? The conference player of the year. He's going to be an All-American, and yet he didn't get a chance to be on that bigger stage of the NCAA tournament. What do you think it does to his draft probability?
A lot of these draft statuses are based on what you do in the NCAA tournament. So he won't get that opportunity. But I think the body of work he put in this year has him in the conversation. So, I've encouraged him. And he told me today, I haven't thought a thing about it, Coach. I said, well, I think you've got to go through the process, get out there, see where you stand. But that's changing, Doug. What if the NBA season goes until July? Are they going to have a combine? Are they going to fly kids in for individual workouts while the virus is still prevalent? In groups of 2 or 3 guys to a city. So that process is going to change. So we're in uncharted territory, even as far as preparation for the draft and finding out where your stock actually lies.
Brian Dutcher, head coach of San Diego State, joining us on the Doug Gottlieb Show on Fox Sports Radio. You did lose on a last-second shot, right? Like how easy is that to click and delete from the memory bank?
It was last year's conference MVP Sam Merrill and this year's conference MVP Malachi Flynn battling. Malachi missed a step-in three that I want him to take. Sam Merrill hit a step-back three on our best defender, and that's basketball. It was the NCAA tournament before the NCAA tournament. Sam Merrill made an NBA three to win his team a game, and it had that kind of feel. And then with that even being said, Malachi had a half-court shot that rung in and out of the rim. And so it was like the NCAA tournament in a conference final in the Mountain West.
Well, 30-2 is nothing to, excuse the expression, sneeze at, right? Incredible year. Congratulations on your season, and thanks so much for joining us.
I appreciate that, Doug. Thank you so much.
All right, it's Brian Dutcher.